What if your body already knows you're going to win a game, like seconds before the computer even decides the outcome?
Right, which sounds completely impossible.
Yeah, imagine getting a sudden, inexplicable stomach ache on a Tuesday, only to find out you're going to eat some terrible spoiled sushi on Thursday.
Right.
We are so accustomed to thinking that the past causes the present, but today we are looking at hard neurological data that suggests human biology might actually be reacting to the future.
And it fundamentally breaks the standard model of how we experience reality.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at an absolute paradigm shift regarding the true nature of time, the mysteries of human consciousness, and honestly, what the human mind is actually capable of achieving.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to explore the absolute bleeding edge of human potential. And our guide through this incredibly wild territory is a massive stack of source material detailing the work of Dr. Julia Mossbridge. She is a cognitive neuroscientist and computer scientist who studied at Northwestern University. But, she eventually had to step outside the rigid boundaries of traditional academia to investigate precognition, nonlinear time, and anomalous human performance.
Because traditional science just doesn't really know what to do with this stuff.
Exactly. By the end of this deep dive, you might completely rethink where your original ideas actually come from and why your physical body is essentially a biological time machine.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a story from Mossbridge's childhood that I think perfectly frames why mainstream science is so terrified of these concepts.
Yeah, so this happened in an old farmhouse in Illinois. During a storm, a phenomenon known as ball lightning physically entered the house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just zipping right through the living room. Now, ball lightning is a completely bizarre, highly contested electrical anomaly on its own.
Right, it's super rare.
Extremely rare. But what is most telling here isn't the lightning itself, it is how her two parents reacted to it.
Because her dad is a theoretical physicist, right?
Right. His daily life involves studying the electron layer on the moon. You would think a physicist would be totally fascinated by ball lightning in his own living room.
You would think.
Instead, his immediate response was simply, that couldn't have happened.
Wait, he just flat out denied it.
He dismissed the entire event because it didn't fit into his mathematical frameworks.
That is wild.
But her mom, who works as a therapist, took a completely different approach. She pointed to a physical brown burn mark left in the corner of the room where the lightning hit and essentially said, look, it left a mark. We both experienced it. The reality happened regardless of whether you have an equation for it.
I love that. And that dynamic perfectly encapsulates the simplification and control issue within traditional physics.
Absolutely.
Because, physicists often enter their field because they have a deep desire to simplify the chaotic universe into manageable, predictable equations.
Right, they want order.
Yeah, so when they encounter a phenomenon that completely evades measurement or, breaks their existing models, their cognitive circuits essentially fry.
Yeah. It is psychologically easier for an academic to deny the lived reality, even when staring directly at a burn mark on the wall, than to admit their foundational model of the universe is broken.
Because I imagine for a tenured physicist, admitting this stuff exists is essentially admitting their entire life's work is flawed.
Yeah.
It's a complete ego death. Modern academia operates a bit like a highly regulated chess game.
That's a good way to put it.
You are only allowed to play the opening moves that everyone else at the table has already agreed are acceptable. If you try to move a piece off the board, you lose your funding.
And the economic reality of science cannot be ignored here. The academic grant system is built entirely on risk aversion.
Right.
To secure a grant today, your research practically has to be 3/4 finished before you even submit the application.
Which is crazy.
It is. You are heavily incentivized to only study what you already know is going to yield a predictable result. This system basically forces brilliant minds to rigidly follow accepted narratives just to protect their careers.
Which actively stunts true discovery.
Exactly.
So if our brightest minds are aggressively filtering out the unexplainable just to protect their egos and their livelihoods, it implies a massive portion of reality is just being ignored.
Yes.
So, to prove these anomalies exist, we have to bypass the conscious, biased brain entirely. We have to look at the involuntary reactions of the human body.
Right, which brings us to her postdoc work.
Yeah, Mossbridge secured funding from the Bile Foundation in Portugal, specifically to study a concept called presentiment.
And presentiment is basically the scientific study of the body anticipating random future events.
Okay.
To measure this, her team set up a rigorously controlled protocol. Subjects were hooked up to machines measuring skin conductance, essentially how much they were sweating and their heart rhythms.
Got it.
They were seated in front of a computer screen and asked to play a randomized guessing game. Now, the crucial element here is the random number generator. The computer itself had not yet determined whether the subject would win or lose when the physiological measurements were being taken.
Okay, wait, so the subjects are just sitting there waiting for the computer to make a choice.
Yes.
And before the computer even finalized the outcome, the data showed massive physiological spikes.
Exactly. The subjects' bodies were reacting before the event occurred in physical space-time. And the gender differences the data revealed add a fascinating layer to this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When male subjects were about to get a correct answer before they won, their physiological arousal spiked dramatically.
Wow.
Their sweat gland activity and heart rates surged, acting as if they had just won a major victory, seconds before the screen actually showed them they were right. But if they were about to lose, their bodies coasted.
And what about the women?
Female subjects showed a much lower, more consistent physiological baseline, regardless of whether they were about to win or lose.
Okay, let's look at the evolutionary mechanics of that. Why would human biology develop a gendered physiological alarm system for something that hasn't happened yet?
Well, what's fascinating here is how primal survival needs might literally stretch across time.
Okay.
Look back at our evolutionary history, specifically the dynamics of early hominids or tribal warfare. For males engaged in hunting or defending territory, anticipating a win or sensing an impending ambush was literally a matter of immediate survival.
Right.
The biological imperative to dominate, to secure the perimeter, might have wired the human nervous system to subconsciously reach forward in time, feeling for the ripples of impending danger or victory.
That brings us right back to my Tuesday stomachache analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, how does a biological antenna physically pick up a broadcast from a radio station that hasn't even played the song yet? If the random number generator hasn't made a choice, the information literally doesn't exist yet.
Well, if the body's picking up a signal before the event happens, it implies the event is already broadcasting from the future.
Which sounds like science fiction.
It does. To understand the mechanics of this, we have to completely shatter our concept of linear time and explore retrocausality.
Okay.
This is the principle that the future can influence the past. We naturally perceive time linearly, right? Imagine walking single file on a path across a vast landscape.
Right.
You can only see the rocks immediately in front of your feet. You remember the mountain you passed yesterday, but you have absolutely no idea there is a massive waterfall 1 mile ahead.
Okay, so under this theory, precognitive dreamers, or, people whose biology spikes before an event, they aren't walking on the path.
Exactly.
They are flying an airplane thousands of feet above that exact same landscape.
Yes.
From the plane, you can look down and see the mountain, the path, and the waterfall simultaneously. The past, present, and future exist all at once, and there is hard quantum physics backing this up. Let's talk about the double slit experiment across time.
Right, the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. So the classic double slit experiment demonstrates that a single photon of light acts as a wave of infinite possibilities until it is consciously observed or measured.
Right, and then it collapses into a single particle taking a specific path.
Exactly. But quantum physicists have taken this further with delayed choice experiments. They fire a photon, allowing it to pass through the slits as a wave. But after it has already passed through the slits, they suddenly introduce a measurement device.
Wait, so they decide to measure the photon after it has theoretically already made its journey?
Precisely. And what happens defies logic. The future measurement retroactively dictates how the photon behaved in the past.
That is insane.
If you measure it at the end of its journey, it reaches back through time and acts as if it had been a solid particle the entire time, changing its past trajectory to match its future measurement. A photon fired right now changes its behavior based on variables that will be introduced in the future.
Which is wild because our current tech industry is pouring billions of dollars into building quantum computers to harness this exact kind of superposition.
Oh, yeah.
Billions. They are constructing these massive, supercooled, magnetically isolated vacuum chambers just to coax a single miserable particle into holding multiple states at once. Meanwhile, nature has already perfected this. Walk outside to your front yard, and a leaf on a tree is performing biological quantum computing at room temperature.
Photosynthesis is a perfect example of this mechanism.
Yeah.
When a photon from the sun hits a leaf, that energy needs to travel to the plant's reaction center with near-perfect efficiency.
Right.
If it just bounced around randomly, most of the energy would be lost as heat.
Right.
Instead, the biological structures within the leaf hold the energy in a state of quantum superposition.
The energy is literally exploring every possible route to the reaction center simultaneously, across different timelines, and then instantly collapsing into the single most efficient path.
Exactly.
Nature uses quantum mechanics to bypass the limits of linear time.
Which points toward a profound theoretical framework. If time is nonlinear and nature operates quantumly at room temperature, it suggests the existence of an informational substrate.
Like a cosmic library.
Yeah. Some ancient traditions call this the Akashic Records, but in physics terms, think of it as a localized quantum library containing all past events, present realities, and potential future probabilities. Mossbridge theorizes that photons, which are entirely unique because they have zero mass and intermediate the electromagnetic force, might be the physical bridge between human consciousness and this substrate.
Because they have no mass.
Right. Since they have no mass, they don't experience time the way physical matter does.
Let's apply that to the human brain. We traditionally view the brain as a factory that manufactures thoughts. But if this informational substrate exists, maybe the brain isn't a factory at all. Maybe the brain is a television receiver.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like the TV sitting in your living room doesn't generate the local news broadcast inside its plastic casing. It receives an invisible frequency from the air and translates it into a picture you can understand.
Right.
The signal is already in the room, that the TV just tunes into it. Are we just, Play-Doh heads, like ideas are just being pushed through the holes of a toy from this external ether? Are we basically just the sex organs of the machine world, as Marshall McLuhan said?
That analogy fundamentally redefines human creativity and consciousness. If consciousness isn't something our brain generates, but a signal our brain receives, filters, and translates, then our original ideas are simply the universe manifesting its probabilities through our biological hardware.
If that's the case, most of us have a massive neurological filter blocking out 99% of the signal just so we can focus on, paying our taxes and crossing the street.
Yeah, exactly.
If we want to prove this universal informational soup is real, we wouldn't look at typical brains. We would have to study individuals where that neurological filter is completely bypassed or wired differently. And Mossbridge's research leads her directly to non-speaking autistic individuals.
This is a cornerstone of her findings. She partnered with non-speaking individuals who communicate using letterboards or digital keyboards. And because these claims are so extraordinary, the testing protocols had to be airtight.
Right.
They utilized double-blind setups. The person designated as the sender would be locked in a completely separate room, behind a closed door, watching a randomly selected video target. The non-speaking student in the testing room had zero visual or auditory access to what was on the screen.
And the results they documented are just staggering.
Yeah.
In one rigorous trial, the sender in the isolated room is shown a time-lapse, highly stylized video of the northern lights glowing over a forest. In the testing room, the non-speaking student immediately types out on their board, "It's art of a beautiful sky."
Which is incredible.
Yeah. Out of all the billions of potential video clips on the internet, the statistical probability of guessing that exact phrasing is practically zero.
And even more compelling than the isolated hits was the spontaneous telepathic synchronization between the students.
Oh, the telepathy train.
Yes.
During one session, a student was struggling to lock onto the psychic target. He types out a completely original idea. He tells the researchers that the sender in the other room should literally slam a beach ball onto the ground right before transmitting the image.
Right.
He explains that the loud noise and the visual impact of the ball will create a specific marker in time, like a ripple he can easily tune into. So the session ends and the student goes home.
And this is where the informational substrate becomes visible. 20 minutes later, a completely different non-speaking student arrives for his session.
Okay.
This second student was not in the building previously and had zero physical or digital contact with the first student. The moment he sits down at the keyboard, before the researchers even begin the protocol, he types, "It would be good to try the beach ball slam."
Unbelievable. It is undeniable evidence of a shared network. And they aren't just accessing each other's thoughts in real time. They are pulling historical data from the ether.
Oh, yeah.
Another student was asked to describe the societal purpose of Gothic art. He types out that it authorizes the masses.
Authorizes.
Yeah, the researcher assumes it's a typo. She looks it up and discovers it's a highly obscure English word from the 1400s that means to calm or appease.
Wow.
When they asked the student how he possibly knew that word, he casually typed back that he had just been conversing with a magistrate from that specific century.
We have to look at the neurological mechanism here. Why are non-speaking individuals seemingly unhindered by the boundaries of time and space? There is a fascinating neurological hypothesis anchored in the work of Dr. Maurice Freeman, a Canadian neurologist.
Right.
He conducted studies on patients who had suffered highly specific strokes in the left frontal orbital area of their brain.
And the left side of the brain is the control center for language, speech, and executive function.
Exactly. It manages our linear, logical interaction with the physical world. Freeman discovered that when a stroke physically damaged this specific left brain language center, these patients suddenly developed the ability to influence a random number generator on a computer screen.
They can move a cursor with their minds?
Yeah, they can make a cursor move simply by willing it to move, demonstrating statistically significant psychokinesis. However, patients who suffered strokes on the right side of the brain showed zero anomalous abilities.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The left brain isn't just managing vocabulary. It is actively acting as a neurological noise canceller.
Yes?
It purposefully inhibits the right brain's nonlinear, intuitive, potentially telepathic processing to keep us anchored in the present moment so a lion doesn't eat us.
Exactly.
Is language basically a giant pair of noise-canceling headphones? Did we trade our innate ability to feel the universe and communicate across time just for the ability to say the word apple?
It is a profound trade-off. Language is a highly efficient survival technology, but by heavily developing that left brain filter, we naturally dampened our connection to the quantum informational substrate. Non-speaking individuals, due to their unique neurology, might simply have that left brain noise-canceling feature permanently disabled.
They are experiencing the raw, unfiltered broadcast.
Exactly.
While the rest of us are oblivious to the signal, the source material suggests powerful organizations have been acutely aware of these biological antennas for decades. The history books and Mossbridge's own deeply unsettling life experiences indicate that the intelligence community has been actively trying to identify and harvest these abilities.
Yeah. When dealing with exceptional cognitive anomalies, we inevitably cross into the darker territory of government surveillance and unauthorized testing.
And Mossbridge brought the receipts for her own life.
She really did.
In the early 1980s, when she was just a 7th grader, she was enrolled in a gifted program, a predecessor to GATE. The acronym was SOAR, which stood for Students on Active Research. She recalls being regularly pulled out of her normal classes and taken to a small room with 2 adult counselors. She was handed a chalky pink drink, and from the moment she swallowed it, she has total blackout amnesia.
Wow.
Her only memory is suddenly walking back down the hallway to her next class, realizing an hour of time was completely missing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, her experience mirrors the heavily documented operations of the intelligence community during the Cold War. Under programs like MKUltra, the government notoriously poured funding into studying mind control, forced amnesia, and remote viewing.
Right.
To find subjects with raw psychic potential, they frequently targeted vulnerable, easily controlled populations, prisoners, foster children, and kids in the public school system entirely without their consent.
And her encounters didn't end in middle school. When Mossbridge was around 20 years old, she secured a temporary job as a typist at Lockheed Martin, one of the largest defense contractors in the world.
Yeah.
She goes in for her morning interview and is hired immediately. Her very next conscious memory is the end of the workday.
Just gone.
Completely gone. She is sitting at a desk, her hands are violently shaking, tears are streaming down her face, and she is typing a letter of resignation. An entire day of her life completely wiped from her brain. She hands the resignation to her boss, and his response is chilling. He looks at her and says, "Oh, that's a shame. I thought you would have a great future at Lockheed Martin."
So creepy.
Why would a defense contractor executive say that to a college kid hired as a temp typist that exact morning?
Well, the underlying variable linking her to these programs is likely her genetics. Her grandfather worked as a uranium miner. The radiation he absorbed directly affected her mother's biology, meaning Mossbridge's genetic material was exposed to radiation before she was even born.
Oh, wow.
Agencies heavily monitored the multi-generational neurological effects of radiation, actively searching for resulting cognitive mutations or enhanced abilities.
Okay, let me push back here, because memory is notoriously fallible, especially around traumatic events. Could this just be a case of strange, fragmented childhood memories being misinterpreted? Like, maybe it was just a weird school counselor, and later in life, an intense panic attack on the first day of a new job.
That is the logical assumption, until you examine the paper trail she uncovered as an adult.
Right. The FOIA request absolutely shatters the coincidence theory. Mossbridge formally files a Freedom of Information Act request to unseal any federal records regarding her childhood participation in these programs. 4 days later, which is physically impossible speed for federal bureaucracy, she is suddenly heavily recruited for a high-level job within the intelligence community.
Convenient timing.
Right. She goes through the motions and passes the initial interview. Suddenly, the FOIA office contacts her directly and asks, "Are you sure you want us to process this request?" Believing that uncovering her files might jeopardize her shiny new security clearance, she agrees to drop the FOIA request entirely. Literally 3 minutes after she officially drops the inquiry into her past, the intelligence recruiter calls her back and says, "Great news, you've passed the next level of clearance."
The timing eliminates any doubt. The surveillance was an ongoing reality. Her file was flagged, and the moment she tried to look at it, the system deployed a massive career incentive to distract her and force her to drop the investigation. It's a profound violation of autonomy.
It is deeply unsettling. Discovering you've been a lab rat in a covert experiment could easily consume a person with paranoia. But the most inspiring takeaway from Mossbridge's journey is how she weaponized that trauma.
Yeah.
She took the experience of missing time and memory loss and used it to build a tool for profound psychological healing.
She founded a nonprofit organization called Applied Love Labs, where they developed an audio journaling application called the Time Machine.
And they deploy this app with military veterans suffering from PTSD, inmates at Cook County Jail, and indigenous tribes.
Yeah.
The mechanics of the app are brilliant. It prompts the user to record intimate audio messages of unconditional love, forgiveness, and guidance. But you aren't just recording a diary entry, you are specifically addressing these messages to your future self. And even more importantly, you are reaching back to speak directly to your past traumatized self.
And Mossbridge does not view this as a simple psychological self-help exercise. She considers this the practical, biological application of retrocausality.
Wow, okay.
By utilizing the nonlinear nature of time, projecting a state of unconditional love backward across your timeline actually creates a localized quantum bubble. You are literally allowing your current, wiser self, the version of you that survived the darkest night, to reach back through the informational substrate and provide energetic comfort to your past self exactly when they need it most.
Think about the implications of that mechanism. Does this mean that when we finally process a deep trauma, the immense feeling of relief and forgiveness we experience in the present is actually the very energetic force that helped our past self survive the trauma in the first place?
Yes.
When you were at rock bottom thinking you couldn't survive another day, that unexplainable burst of strength you felt was actually you, 10 years in the future, transmitting love backward down the timeline. We are literally saving ourselves.
It entirely redefines the concept of human resilience. It proves that we are not victims of a linear march toward decay. Our timelines are inherently supportive and interconnected if we consciously choose to utilize them.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started with the ego of academia and proven data that our sweat glands can predict the future. We broke down the mechanics of the quantum leap, explored how the left brain's language center suppresses our telepathic abilities, navigated the dark waters of government amnesia experiments, and arrived at healing trauma through retrocausal time travel.
It's been quite a ride.
Mossbridge points out that society is constantly waiting for disclosure, waiting for a government podium to announce that UFOs exist or that psychic phenomena are real. But true disclosure is entirely internal.
Right.
True disclosure is trusting your own inner space and validating your own unexplainable experiences, even if the physicists don't have an equation for it yet. So, what does this all mean? How do we integrate this nonlinear reality into our daily lives?
Well, this raises a profound final thought for you to consider. If time truly is a retrocausal nonlinear loop, and if human evolution is slowly trending toward us becoming frail, highly telepathic beings with massive cognitive capacities who no longer rely on spoken language.
Oh, I see where you're going.
What if the aliens people have been reporting for decades aren't extraterrestrial at all? What if they aren't traveling here from another galaxy, but are simply us from the distant future?
Wait, really?
Yeah. What if they are reaching back through the quantum informational soup, occasionally planting little acupuncture needles of technology and ideas into our timeline, just to ensure their past selves survive long enough to evolve into them?
We are our own guardian angels, just operating on a delay. After unpacking the actual mechanics of how deeply connected our biology is to the fabric of time, the world feels infinitely more magical than the rigid, simplified version we are taught in school. Embrace the murky waters. Be the biological antenna, picking up the music of the future before the DJ even plays the track. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Trust your inner space and stay endlessly curious.